Today I want to talk about the best cameras that you can get for under $1,000. Hey, I'm Bryce Koebel, and if you haven't been to the channel yet, I talk about everything under filmmaking, tech, camera gear, fun stuff. I don't know, I just talk about stuff. Right away, I just want to say that there are a few things that you should consider before you buy a camera, especially if you're buying more of an entry-level camera. Anything under $1,000 is considered entry-level. It doesn't necessarily mean that the camera's bad though. It actually just means you're getting sort of like a very basic package that works really well, kind of like shooting on a phone, where it's like, you know what you're gonna get. It's gonna be a decently good photo that you can work with. Some of the things that you should consider. Is this just a casual camera? Like, are you just looking to have something that you want to take photos with once in a while? Are you looking to capture like family moments, kids running around, dog running around? Do you want to get into like wildlife? Or are you like a frequent traveler and you want to kind of have a camera that you can bring with you? Are you a social media content creator? Are you looking for a cheap camera to use that's not your iPhone? Or are you actually looking to get into videography and photography professionally and you're just looking to get your first camera? Those things actually can really affect what camera you should get. I don't want to just do like, oh, top 5 cameras that you should buy. They're all a little bit different. You know, there's certain things that come with each camera that you kind of have to know what you want to use it for. Another thing that you should consider actually is buying used, because the used market is actually really good, especially anything from Canon and sometimes Sony. So a lot of these cameras that I recommend, they are starting, you know, retail prices under $1,000, but Canadian prices. Just keep that in mind too. If you're watching this from another country, look at the prices, compare. Your camera might even have like a different brand name. For example, the Canon Rebel T7 is like the 2000D or something. Like it has a different name in, I think, Europe. So there's also going to be like other things that you have to buy too, like SD cards and extra batteries or a tripod. You don't want to just necessarily buy everything at once. I think that it's good to kind of do some research, or at least get the camera and start using it, figure out, oh, I need this. I actually need more storage. I actually need more batteries. And also, how much will you be editing? How much work are you willing to do? There's certain things that you kind of have to think about that will actually change your decision. I'm going to start off with the Canon cameras, probably the best entry-level photography camera that you can get, and that is the Canon Rebel series cameras, specifically the Canon Rebel T7. You can also get the Canon Rebel T8. It's a little bit more expensive, but if you want something that's like really affordable but takes great photos, I would recommend the Canon T7. When I started photography, I had the Canon Rebel T6i, and the reason why it was called the T6i was because it had like a little interface on the top where you can see your settings. It's kind of cool. There's like different versions of the camera that you can get. Like, I loved that camera. I took that camera everywhere with me. It kind of started my professional career as a photographer. So I took a lot of headshots of my friends. I did some sports photography. I did dance photography. I did all of these things and I loved it. It's lightweight. It has interchangeable lenses, so you can put on like prime lenses and you can get something really cheap, like the $200 50mm lens. It's called like the Nifty 50, and it's like really small, takes great photos, has an aperture of like 1.8. That's a very affordable package that you can get. I will say though that the video is, it's not great in today's standards. It doesn't take raw video. It doesn't take 4K video. It's just 1080p. So it's not amazing, but I actually have filmed a lot of videos on it. They look okay. They look pretty good, but the colors and the dynamic range, it's great. And it's nice because, you know, it comes with a lens, it comes with a camera strap, it comes with a battery and a charger. It's just kind of like a nice package that you get. In terms of like affordability, quality of photography, like this is a great camera. The next step up from the Canon Rebel, I would say, is the Canon M series, specifically the Canon M50 Mark II. It has very similar settings. You know, it still has a 24 megapixel sensor. You can now shoot in 4K. It also has really good autofocus. It has a much higher ISO. You can go from like 100 all the way up to like 25,600. Probably looks terrible, but it's nice to have that range. And it's also a nice looking camera. Like, it has a good grip still. It's really small. It's a nice travel camera, I would say. So the lens is like a 15 to 45mm, which is kind of a weird range. It's a decent range. It gets wide enough and it kind of gets close enough where you can do portraits and stuff like that between those two cameras. So if you want to get into video, I would recommend that camera. But if you want to just do photos, get a Rebel. Okay, so now we're getting into Sony. I think that their video capabilities are incredible. Probably my favorite all-around camera, and that is the Sony ZV-E10. And it is like a vlogging content creation camera, but you know, you can still do a lot of things with it. So it has a 25 megapixel sensor. It can shoot in JPEGs and RAW. It can also shoot in XAVC S 4K. So this is like where you're getting into like the more high-end S-Log type video. So if you're like a content creator, I would say this is like a really good entry-level video camera. Like it's entry-level, but you can use it professionally. Like you can use it for all of your like work if you really want to. It has amazing autofocus and also a really nice flip-out screen because it's meant for like content creators, you know, vlogging and stuff. It has a really good on-camera mic, and it also comes with this little like, it's called a dead cat. It's like a fuzzy thing that allows you to talk outside without getting like the wind noise and everything. I would say ergonomics, it's not the nicest camera. It kind of just feels like holding a brick. The Canon cameras, they have more of like a nicer sort of handheld feel. But if you have like smaller hands, this can work totally fine. I just have, my hands are ginormous. So it's even like my Sony, my full frame cameras, they feel a little bit small in my hands sometimes. The ZV-E10 is such a good all-around camera. I wouldn't say it's like better at certain things. I would say it's good at kind of everything it does, you know, photo, video, vlogging, all that stuff. If you want like a good, like an older but good photography camera, the Sony a7 II is a really good camera, and you could probably find that thing for like 500 bucks. Again, it's older, so the battery probably doesn't last very long. The screen and the viewfinder probably isn't amazing, but the images coming out of it are actually really good. Next up, let's talk about Nikon. I haven't used a lot of Nikons. My brother has been using Nikon his whole life. He loves it. If you are a photographer, if you want to get into especially like wildlife photography, wedding photography, it's definitely one of the best ways to go. And Nikon's getting really good. They're getting really good with video because they also acquired Red. Their cameras are now going to have like incredible video, but you know, those are expensive cameras. I would say the only camera that I found kind of in my research that was really worth under $1,000, and I don't even know if it's actually at under $1,000, depends on where you're from and how the market is. Nikon Z50 or the Z52. If you can find the Z52 used, I think that would be a really worthwhile camera. It is very similar specs to the other cameras, but Nikon just has a very good dynamic range, colors, video specs too. You can shoot in 4K up to 30 frames per second. If that interests you, it's good to have that as well. But if you just want like a solid, you know, photography camera that is mirrorless, it has 21 megapixels, which I wouldn't get too caught up in megapixels. I would say anything from like 15 to 25 is good enough. This photo is like incredibly detailed. It was shot on a camera with 12 megapixels. All of these photos that I have up here, they were all shot on my Sony a7S III with 12 megapixels. So it may not be the absolute sharpest thing, but when you look at it, you wouldn't guess that it was 12 megapixels. All right, let's talk about Fuji. Yeah, good luck. I actually looked and I couldn't find a single camera that was under $1,000. Unless you're looking in the used market, retail price, I doubt you're gonna find a really good deal on a Fuji because they like never go on sale and they're all kind of expensive. But if you're in the used market, you could probably find like an XT32 or an XT30 for a decent price. And I know some people who have this camera and they really like it. Fuji is like really, really good for photography, especially like film emulation. So they have these like sort of baked in film presets within their Fuji cameras. The photos coming out look great, but I mean, I've never really been a huge fan of Fuji. Whenever I've seen their photos and stuff, they always just look really like digital and weird and fake to me. I don't know what it is. I think I'm probably gonna get a lot of haters. They're kind of overpriced for the quality that you're getting. But with Fuji, it's like all the experience. It's the experience of the camera because everything is like really tactile and manual. So let's talk about Panasonic. Panasonic actually has some really good cameras. So if you want something that's like really paired towards just like solid video performance, one of the best cameras that came out for video was the Panasonic GH4. It's an older camera now, but man, this camera is amazing for video. I remember some people were using it for all of their work. The nice thing about Panasonic is that their cameras are not very expensive. Yeah, you can get a GH4 for under $1,000, brand new. It shoots like incredible video. The sensor's not huge, but like I remember people shooting videos on the GH4 and I was like, what is this? This looks amazing. It also has probably the best in-body image stabilization I've ever seen. Like, it's incredible. You can just walk or like jog and it stays very steady. Another camera I would say that's kind of good for video and photo would be the G85. But the tough thing is that with these cameras, you don't really get a whole lot of depth of field because it's a really small sensor. If you're leaning more towards video cameras, content creation like that, Panasonic is kind of like the way to go. As you get more expensive with the cameras too, they only get better. I would say my overall top pick is the Sony ZV-E10, mostly because of the affordability, features that you get with it. It's really good for photography, really good for video, really good for vlogging. The battery life is decent. I know a lot of people who bought that camera, they love it. They don't have any regrets. Okay, so if the Sony ZV-E10 is kind of like the best overall camera that I would recommend, for a photography camera, I would recommend the Canon M52 or the Nikon Z52. If you guys can find those used or if you can find them on a sale, I think those are probably gonna be your best bet. Honestly, if you wanna go like super budget, I would pick up like a Canon T8 or a T7. Those are definitely very good entry-level photography cameras. And then for video, there's so many different options you can do because video is just, it's so good on a lot of different cameras nowadays. If you can pick up a Lumix GH4 or GH5, that would be really good. I think you'd get a lot of that camera. Or even like a G85. If you were gonna go on the Sony route, I would look for a Sony A6500. So I had a Sony A6500 after my Canon Rebel. I loved that camera. I shot so many different videos with it. It was still actually pretty good for photos. I have some of my favorite projects that I shot on that camera. It might feel a little bit outdated, but the camera specs are still really good. You can always try out a camera, but I would say buying a camera kind of comes with the experience of like having to learn how to use the camera. Phone photography is really good nowadays, but the thing with phone photography is that it's very digital. And if you want to get that authentic kind of photography experience, then yeah, go in the camera direction. When you have a phone, you can pretty much just take the photo and then upload it right away. But if you buy a camera, you kind of have to like, okay, you got to buy the camera, but then, oh, you also have to buy an SD card, and then you also have to learn to use the camera. You have to take the photos off the camera onto the computer, edit them a little bit, and then you have to upload those cameras to your phone, and then you know, so there's like a process with a camera. A lot of people get a camera and then they realize that like, oh, this isn't like as fun as I thought it would be. This is like a lot of work. So I really hope this video is helpful. These are just kind of like questions that I get a lot. People are always asking me like, oh, what's the best camera to get under $1,000? And so I've had to do a lot of research of what that means and like, why are you looking for a camera and all that. If you have any questions or if you have any recommendations, like if you have a camera that you think is a really good camera that's under $1,000, leave a comment down below. Let me know. I would love to know. And like, this is more helpful for me so I can give better recommendations. If you haven't subbed yet, feel free to leave a sub. And yeah, I'm grateful that you're here. Listen to me yap, and happy shooting. I hope you find the camera you're looking for.